Black people, the story of Adam and Eve is not just a tale, it's a message, a divine warning, a blueprint revealing how the world operates, how the devil deceives, and how God shows mercy toward us. Why do you think words like cunning or crafty, knowledge, woman, man, and serpent were chosen? These aren't random. They hold powerful lessons about deception, wisdom, authority, and the eternal battle between truth and lies. Have you ever wondered why the enemy targeted the woman first? Why knowledge was the temptation? Why the serpent was the symbol? These details matter. The role of the devil in world history is not a myth, it's a reality. And understanding these symbols helps us see how his tactics still operate today, especially against us as a people. In this video, we break it all down. How the deception in Eden mirrors the deception Black people face in the world today. How God's mercy still covers us, and how we must recognize the enemy's schemes. Before we dive in, take a second to subscribe, like, share, and drop a comment. Help Melanin Ministry reach more of our people with the truth. Now let's get into it. What role do these words and symbols play in our lives today? What if I told you that the devil wasn't always the enemy? That he was once an exalted angel, one of the wisest, most powerful beings in God's creation? But wisdom without humility leads to destruction, and the devil's downfall was his pride. According to Jewish apocryphal texts, such as the life of Adam and Eve, the devil refused to bow before Adam as God commanded. He saw himself as too great, too powerful to humble himself before a being made from dust. This act of disobedience and defiance cost him everything. He and those who followed him were cast down to earth, forever cut off from the presence of God, never to return to heaven. Knowing his fate was sealed, the devil set his sights on humanity. If he could not return to glory, he would ensure that mankind shared in his downfall. This is how the story of Adam's fall begins. The scriptures use keywords to reveal much about our world today. In this video, we'll explore their significance and what they mean for us today. The first thing the Bible reveals about the devil is his cunning nature, described as crafty, subtle, or cunning, depending on the translation. This is no coincidence. It serves as a clear warning about the enemy's primary tactic: deception. The devil's greatest weapon is not brute force, but manipulation. The King James Version refers to him as subtle, meaning deceitful and shrewd. From the very beginning, his strategy has been to distort truth, turning lies into truth and truth into lies, to lead mankind away from God. His deception operates on every level: spiritual, political, social, and personal, making him a master of illusion rather than confrontation. The Bible confirms that the devil rules this world. In 2 Corinthians 4:4, it states that the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not. Even our Messiah, Yahushua, called him the prince of this world in John 12:31. If the devil controls the world, then what does that mean for everything within it? It means deception is everywhere, woven into government, religion, education, medicine, entertainment, and even our daily lifestyles. But what exactly is deception? According to the Oxford Advanced Learner's Dictionary, deception is the act of deliberately making someone believe something that is not true. It is the deliberate exchange of truth for lies, making the lie seem real and the truth appear false. This is the very system we live in today, a world where deception governs everything. This is not just a warning, it is a message from our King. He wants his people to be vigilant, to see through the illusion, and to resist the schemes of the world. The devil's grip on this world is strong, but understanding his methods is the first step toward breaking free. Philosophy is another tactic of Satan. His masterwork, his strategy to deceive, confuse, and lead us away from God. The devil is the father of deception, and philosophy is his most effective weapon. Through intellectualism and reasoning, he manipulates minds, making us question the authority of God and his commandments. This is why Colossians 2:8 warns us, "Beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the basic principles of the world, and not according to Christ." From the very beginning, we see Satan using philosophy against humanity. In Genesis 3, the devil, through the serpent, does not command Eve to sin. Instead, he asks a question: Has God indeed said? Right there, he introduces doubt. The foundation of philosophy is the questioning of everything, including truth, morality, and authority. Satan beat Eve with a profound question, forcing her to rationalize her decision instead of simply obeying God. This is the exact strategy philosophy continues to use today. Black people, we have always been the most spiritually connected people on earth. However, through philosophy, Satan has created confusion, leading many of us to reject God and embrace man-made doctrines. The study of philosophy is rooted in human wisdom, which contradicts divine wisdom. It claims to seek truth, but it only creates more questions rather than answers. It encourages us to challenge divine commandments, making us believe that obedience to God is oppressive or outdated. The education system, religious institutions, and modern ideologies all push philosophy as the highest form of wisdom. But in reality, it is Satan's way of making people question God's existence, authority, and judgment. Every major ideology that has led us away from faith, whether atheism, evolution, relativism, or humanism, has its roots in philosophy. These ideologies have led Black people to abandon our biblical heritage, keeping us spiritually lost and disconnected from our true identity. Not only has philosophy infiltrated secular society, but it has also entered the church. Many churches today do not teach the Word of God as it is written. Instead, they incorporate philosophical interpretations that distort the truth. Preachers rely on intellectual debates, theological arguments, and human reasoning, rather than the simple and clear commands of God. This has resulted in 1. Watered-down teachings that conform to worldly wisdom rather than divine truth. 2. Division within the church as people debate theology instead of focusing on obedience. 3. Doubt and skepticism, leading many believers to abandon their faith for intellectual reasoning. And 4. The rise of false doctrines as philosophy replaces biblical truth with human logic. This is why the Bible warns against vain philosophies. Philosophy prioritizes reason over revelation, leading us away from faith and into endless debates. The serpent deceived Eve through philosophical reasoning, and today the same tactic is used to weaken Black people's faith, ensuring that we remain enslaved spiritually, mentally, and even physically. True wisdom does not come from human intellect, but from God. Proverbs 9:10 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." Unlike philosophy, which leads to doubt and rebellion, divine wisdom leads to obedience and righteousness. The more Black people embrace philosophical thinking over biblical truth, the more we stray from our divine purpose. Satan is the master of philosophy, and his greatest deception is making people believe that wisdom can be found outside of God. But the truth is simple. Obedience is greater than intellect. God has already given us the truth. We must choose to follow it rather than question it. As with philosophy, Satan uses the pursuit of knowledge as a weapon against humanity. He twists wisdom into a tool of deception that leads us away from obedience to God. The more we seek knowledge apart from divine truth, the more we begin to see ourselves as God, elevating our own reasoning above the Most High. This mindset breeds both hedonism and humanism, philosophies that place us at the center of existence rather than the Creator. The Renaissance was a turning point in this deception. What seemed like a cultural awakening was, in reality, a shift away from God. Instead of man being created in the image of God, the roles were reversed. God was now fashioned in man's image, reduced to human limitations. This subtle but dangerous shift placed man above the divine, making man his own God. It was the perfect example of how the knowledge of good and evil, when misused, leads to spiritual disconnection and ultimately death. What was once meant to bring enlightenment became a tool of darkness, proving that knowledge without divine wisdom is not progress. It is destruction. Now we turn our attention to the meaning and significance of man and woman and their role in the last days. Let's begin with the man. God created man to rule over the earth, giving him dominion and the responsibility to protect and nurture creation. But Satan, through deception, stole that dominion, making himself ruler of this world. Adam represents more than just the first man. He symbolizes people today, especially in the last days. Just as Adam trusted Eve's words over God's command, many of us now put more faith in man-made systems, governments, and religions instead of the Most High. We trust the education they give us, the history they rewrite, and the ideologies they push, all while drifting further from God. This is how we lose our authority, by surrendering our faith to the very forces that seek to keep us in bondage. Adam's fall is a warning. If we put human wisdom above the Word of God, we will continue to be ruled instead of walking in our rightful dominion. Eve, the first woman, not only represents the mother of life, but also symbolizes the woman who, through the deception of the devil, will lead humanity to fall once again. In biblical terms, the woman often represents a nation or religion. For example, Israel is referred to as a woman, both a nation and the wife of God. But woman in this context also symbolizes apostasy, a religion that leads humanity astray, encouraging idolatry, persecution of prophets, and spiritual immorality. This woman sits atop a beast which represents a nation or a power that will cause the world to fall into deception, rebellion, and seduction. Through this system, the devil uses the woman to manipulate and spiritually corrupt humanity, drawing people away from God's truth. In the last days, this false religion will seduce the masses, causing them to worship the devil and reject God's commands. This woman and the beast she rides are inseparable, as the beast represents the political and worldly systems that support this false but powerful religion. Just as Eve's deception led to the fall of man, this modern-day apostasy will deceive many and lead them further away from the true worship of God. Obedience to our King, the Creator, is of utmost importance. God, in His wisdom, does not burden us with endless demands. He asks only that we worship Him and remain obedient to His commandments. Yet time and time again, our own desires conflict with His divine will, leading us into disobedience. This is the very pattern we saw in the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve, despite their closeness to God, chose their own way over His. God is just, and His word is absolute. He declared that disobedience would bring death, and so it did. Adam, created to live forever in the presence of the Most High, tasted death because he strayed from the command. There was no alteration to the punishment, no negotiation or adjustment. What God decrees is final, for He is a righteous judge. Yet despite His justice, His mercy is even greater. God could have ended humanity right there in the garden. He had every right to cast Adam and Eve into eternal destruction, but instead He made a way for redemption. Though they had fallen, He clothed them, giving them coverings to shield their shame. This was more than just an act of kindness. It was a foreshadowing of His plan to cover humanity's sin through an even greater sacrifice. His mercy extended beyond the garden, setting in motion the path toward salvation. In the last days, this same mercy is being poured out upon us. Just as Adam and Eve received grace despite their fall, so too does God extend His hand to us today. Black people who have endured centuries of oppression, exile, and deception must recognize that God's mercy has never left us. The systems of this world ruled by Satan have worked tirelessly to strip us of our identity, our history, and our connection to the Most High. Yet just as He did for Adam, God is calling us back, covering our shame and restoring our place in His divine plan. Obedience remains key. The downfall of humanity began with disobedience, and in these last days, the test is the same. Will we follow the ways of the world, the philosophies of men, and the deceptions of the enemy? Or will we submit fully to God? His mercy is abundant, but His judgment is sure. We are given the opportunity to return to Him, to walk in righteousness, and to reclaim the dominion that was lost. Our King is not a distant ruler. He is a loving Father, slow to anger and rich in mercy. He gives chance after chance, sending prophets, warnings, and signs to call us back. But we must not take His mercy for granted. Adam's story teaches us that disobedience leads to separation, but it also reveals that God, in His boundless love, always provides a way back. In these final days, that way is open to us, if we choose to walk in obedience and trust in His unfailing mercy. This concludes the lesson. We must hear the voice of our King through His word. He speaks, but the deceptions of this world have clouded our ears and hardened our hearts. Like Adam and Eve, we have been lured by lies, distracted from our true purpose, and stripped of our divine authority. Yet God calls us back. He desires that we seek knowledge, not the false wisdom of this world, but the truth that exposes deception and reveals the role it plays in our lives. We must awaken, recognize the trap set before us, and return to the path of obedience. The enemy works through confusion, but our King is not the author of confusion. He is the source of clarity, wisdom, and life. Let us open our hearts, reject the lies, and walk in the truth that sets us free. The time is now to listen, obey, and reclaim our place. Black people, the time to wake up is now. The world is filled with deception, and the enemy works tirelessly to keep us blind to the truth. But our King is calling us back to seek wisdom, break free from lies, and walk in obedience. We must reclaim our divine identity, authority, and connection to God. At Melanin Ministry, we are committed to uncovering truth, exposing deception, and restoring our people to their rightful place under the Most High. If you are ready to seek knowledge, understand the schemes of this world, and strengthen your faith, join us. Subscribe, follow, and engage with Melanin Ministry as we bring clarity to the Word and empower our people to stand firm in truth. Support the mission. Your donations help us grow, reach more people, and continue spreading the truth.